How's it going? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you had a great weekend. So today we're doing something a little bit different. If you've been with the channel for a while, you probably know we like to keep things fun. We like to keep things lighthearted, especially when it comes to some of these stories that we talk about in Thailand. But every once in a while, as I'm perusing all the news sites, I see a story that I connect to an extent, and it's something that I see happen to a lot of people in Thailand, especially when it comes to tourists. So we're going to cover a story today that is not lighthearted by any means. I know what it's like to be this person, and it's one of the worst experiences I think you can have. So we're going to go through it. So if you are coming to Thailand and you are planning on riding a motorcycle, even if you have experience, but especially if you don't, I feel like this is something that you should really digest. Just for reference, I've been riding motorcycles my entire life, so I do have a bit of knowledge. So hopefully by the end of the video, if you do decide this is something you still want to do in Thailand, you can be as safe as humanly possible. So let's get into it. So unfortunately, I did come across this article yesterday titled "Foreign Woman Injured in Pattaya Motorcycle Crash After Swerving to Avoid Cart." A foreign woman was injured early Thursday morning after losing control of her motorcycle and crashing into a roadside curb on Jomtien Second Road in Chonburi Province. The incident occurred at approximately 4:36 a.m. on November 14th, 2025. Rescue volunteers were dispatched to the scene following reports of a single vehicle motorcycle accident with injuries. Upon arrival, rescuers found the woman, estimated to be 30 to 40 years old and of Caucasian descent, lying injured with abrasions across her body. Nearby, a bronze-colored Kawasaki 125 motorcycle was overturned on the roadside, sustaining damage. A 33-year-old eyewitness told the authorities that the rider was traveling along Jomtien Second Road when she appeared to swerve abruptly to avoid a roadside cart. She then lost control, struck the curb, and fell from the bike. The witness immediately alerted rescue services. So there are a few more articles that have come out. In the meantime, I have been keeping up with this, and according to those articles, this woman was severely injured and she was taken to hospital, but from everything I understand, it's a serious situation, but she does seem like she's stabilized pretty well. Some of the other stories also went into the details of the types of injuries she sustained, and they were massive. Tons of broken bones in her face, of course, a ton of road rash. And as that story mentioned, she was riding a relatively small 125 motorcycle, which is what I ride. And what I want to point out with this point before we get into anything else is I understand that with some people, there's the assumption that when you're riding, you know, a motorbike or a Thailand bike or a scooter, as some people call them in America, they're relatively slow compared to a lot of other motorcycles. I think it can be really easy for people to think that, you know, since they're small and slow, it's, you know, hard to get seriously injured. And trust me, I will tell you, some of my worst accidents have come when I was going relatively slow, maybe like 25, 30 miles an hour. You're driving down the beach, you're checking stuff out, everything looks weird because you're in a new country. And before you know it, especially if you're not wearing a helmet, you go down, you bang your head. I mean, even if you don't break anything, falling and smashing your face into the pavement, it's not fun. Even if you've never done that, I'm sure you have an idea of how not fun that is, but until it actually happens to you, it is just absolutely miserable, let alone if, you know, your entire face essentially gets crushed. Even if you're used to driving on the street in America, I probably don't have to tell you that it's an entirely different ball game in Thailand. The traffic's much worse. You know, turn signals are not really a thing. The roads can be, you know, a lot of people are double parked, so it's really hard for people to see out onto the road. So people are pulling out in front of you. It's one of those things, you know, if I didn't love motorcycles as much as I do, I think it would be a bit hard for me to enjoy it, because if you're trying to ride really safe, you're honestly not getting a whole lot of time to enjoy the ride itself because you're constantly looking at everything. I think if you've never, you know, ridden pretty extensively, learning in Thailand is not the best move, but I'm not your dad. If it's still something you want to do, let's get into a couple ways you can be a little bit more safe. So if you haven't ridden before, or maybe you've got very limited experience and you are dead set on riding a bike in Thailand, I'm going to give you a little bit of a checklist of things to do, especially, you know, maybe you're planning on moving here and you know, got a few months before you get on the flight. Follow this checklist. Let's try to make you as safe as possible. Of course, first things first, ideally get on a bike as soon as you can. I think it's much more reasonable to learn on a bike in the West. You know, generally better roads, traffic is less hectic, of course, depending on where you live. Start practicing as soon as you can. And there's no don't worry about like a cool factor, you know, like anybody who like tries to clown on you for wearing equipment or, you know, practicing your turns and stuff in a parking lot, that person's not your friend. Don't listen to them. Start moving, start getting used to it, and start, you know, you got to push yourself too, though. Don't just do a couple figure eights and go home. Do things that you think might make you crash and learn how to avoid those. One huge mistake that I see a lot of people making when they come to, especially people who move here, this is pretty much the first mistake that they make. If you haven't ridden bikes a lot in your life, it probably stands to reason that you don't know a whole lot about motorcycles in general, including motorcycle maintenance. I see so many people that come here, they don't know what they're looking for specifically. They go out, they buy a bike, and that bike is not safe. It is not the same as having a car breakdown. If you're driving down the freeway in your car and, you know, even if the wheel completely breaks off or something like that, you're going to slide to a stop, and as long as you don't get hit, you're fine. As opposed to on a motorcycle, when you have a catastrophic failure on a motorcycle, even if you're going 20 miles an hour, it's going to be an absolutely brutal crash. So start learning, start knowing, hey, if I'm going to go buy a bike, this is my checklist. These are the things I need to look for to make sure it is absolutely safe. Now, let's say you've got to Thailand, you found your bike, you made a purchase, you got a rental, whatever, bike's all safe. Next thing is equipment. Obviously, first things first, you should absolutely wear a helmet. The two other things that I think are absolutely necessary, now don't get me wrong, you could wear more than this if you want to, but I think the absolute bare minimum is a helmet, of course, good shoes. This is one that if you ridden motorcycles for a long time will blow your mind. When you come to Thailand, how many people just ride in flip-flops, sandals? Good shoes. Especially if you're inexperienced, if you're driving down the road and something happens and you feel like you're gonna crash, your first instinct is gonna be to put your foot down. Even me, who's been riding my whole life, still, that's the first thing that happens. You can't help it. You'll go to put your foot down. If you have sandals and you're going 50 kilometers an hour and you smash your foot into the pavement, it's gonna be all bad. And then number 3, gloves. Kind of along the same train of thought. If you do come off the bike, doesn't matter how you fall, the first thing you're gonna do is put your hands out. So trust me, one of the worst places to get road rash ever is on your palms, and it doesn't take a whole lot. You don't have to be going very fast. If you have gloves, shoes, and a helmet on, a little spill that where you just pick your bike up, you might have scratched the bike up and you'll be fine. If you don't have that stuff on, it can be and probably will be a whole lot worse. And then the next step, probably the most important one, is how do you learn on the road? Where if you're in Thailand, you want to get better, you want to make sure you're safe, how do you position yourself in every situation to make sure you are fine? Honestly, I can make a 20-minute video just about this little section alone. There are so many little things that you should understand when you're riding a motorcycle on how to keep yourself safe, but I'll kind of just try to sum up the ones that I think are most important. One easy thing to do is just get in a pack with other riders. Ideally, Thai people, because a lot of them have been riding motorcycles their entire life. If you're not sure where you should be on the road or how you shouldn't be doing things, a pretty safe bet most of the time is just look for the other riders around you and what they're doing. Also, if you're in a pack of bikes, it's much easier to see you than if you are by yourself. But of course, don't just follow any old guy, because of course there's some Thai guys who are absolute maniacs as well. Another thing that's very important to understand is the vast majority of motorcycle accidents, not just in Thailand, not just in America, around the world, happen at intersection. It's something crazy. I think it's like 86% or something like that of all motorcycle accidents happen in intersections, especially in Thailand. Don't take a green light for granted. If you're just driving and you have a green light, do not just charge into that intersection blindly. A pretty good rule for most situations, if you are on a bike, you don't want to be the first one through the intersection or the last one through an intersection. So even if it's green, slow down, look both ways, downshift, be ready to go in case somebody pulls out in front of you, something like that. And speaking of people pulling out in front of you, if you only take one tip out of all of these, this is probably the main one I would give you, is always have an escape route. If you're driving down a road, you should always have, ideally, a place where you can go to get out of the way of something happening in front of you. If something happens behind you and somebody runs into you, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. But anytime I'm anywhere on a road, I always try to position myself where if somebody is coming the other way, comes in my lane, I can go off the road, something to get out of the way. You do not want to be pinned in one little area where you can only go forward. If you have a tiny little spot like that and somebody merges over, pushes you into the curb, something like that, it is gonna be all bad. So always try to position yourself, one, where people can see you, and two, if they don't, you have somewhere to go. Pretty much my overarching golden rule that I tell every rider and that I follow myself to the T is just assume that nobody sees you and everybody is pretty much trying to kill you. If you honestly ride like that and you're paying that close attention to everybody, you will most likely be okay. A big thing we say in the motorcycle world is it's not if, it's when you crash. If you ride a motorbike for long enough, you are going to crash. Doing all the things we talked about today just optimizes your chances of just not getting absolutely destroyed when you do. There's a huge part of me that wants to tell you go for it because I absolutely love motorcycles. It's always been a big part of my life. But if it came down to choosing to see you guys being the ones laying in the middle of the road, or you never get to experience riding a motorcycle in Thailand, I'll take the latter, you never getting to ride a motorcycle. Absolutely. Don't let this video scare you. If this is something you want to do, I highly suggest you do it. Just please try to follow along these, rough guidelines as best as you can. And of course, if there's any other questions, maybe stuff we didn't talk about in this video that you're worried about, if you are planning on riding in Thailand, please drop them in the comments below. But that is all for me today, right now. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for hanging out. Everybody who's been supporting all the videos this month has been absolutely awesome. I really appreciate it. I'll see you all tomorrow.